The Xylarian Empire was vast and shining, stretching across countless star systems. Its cities glimmered with golden towers, and the air hummed with advanced technology. Yet, among all this brilliance, the heart of the empire belonged to Empress Livara. She was feared and respected by everyone, aliens and humans alike. With her sharp mind and unmatched power, she ruled with authority that none dared challenge. Livara had always lived by rules. Strength meant control, power meant survival. Love, she had long decided, was a distraction she could not afford. She had seen leaders fall because they allowed feelings to interfere with duty, and yet, here she was, facing a situation she had never imagined. A human named Aiden standing before her, chosen as her mate. The council had presented him as a gesture of alliance. Humans were considered primitive by the Xylarians, fragile and soft, yet cunning in their own ways. Most of the dignitaries expected the Empress to refuse outright, to dismiss him with the cold, sharp words she was known for. But something made her hesitate. Aiden was unlike anyone she had ever seen. He was tall, his shoulders broad, yet his movements were calm and careful. His eyes, deep and steady, held no fear, no hesitation. They looked at her not with awe, nor with expectation, but with something softer, something honest. It unsettled her. For centuries, no one had looked at her like that. Not a general, not a diplomat, not even a rival who had bowed under her power. And yet, here was a human, a creature she considered weak, staring into her eyes with quiet strength. The Empress studied him carefully. He smiled, not arrogantly, not to charm, but with a simple kindness. That smile seemed to reach into her chest and tug at a part of herself she had locked away long ago. The court whispered. Many of the Xylarians exchanged doubtful looks, shaking their heads. Why would the Empress choose a human? They muttered. Livara did not answer them. She barely even heard them. Her mind was caught in a swirl of curiosity, confusion, and something new. Intrigue. She remembered her ancestors' lessons. A ruler must always be prepared, always be clever, always understand the strengths of those around them. And here, standing in her palace, was a being whose true strength she had not yet seen. The wedding was arranged quickly. Across the shining hall, Livara and Aiden exchanged vows in a ceremony that blended Xylarian grandeur with human simplicity. The Empress wore her ceremonial armor, elegant and shining, while Aiden stood in his formal suit, seemingly ordinary among the alien splendor. Yet he held himself with dignity, bowing not in fear, but with respect. During the ceremony, Livara caught herself observing him more than the rituals or the attending dignitaries. He did not stumble over the unfamiliar words. He did not shy away from the alien gaze. Instead, he met every look, every whisper with calm confidence. That confidence was strange to her, foreign, and yet it sparked something she could not name. After the ceremony, as the guests departed and the palace quieted, Livara stood alone, gazing at Aiden. "You are a human," she said softly, almost to herself. "A fragile creature, yet I feel a strength in you I cannot measure." Aiden smiled faintly. "Strength does not always look the way others expect, Your Majesty." Her heart skipped. His words were simple, yet they carried weight. The council would have laughed at such a statement. Many generals would have scoffed. But the Empress felt it in her bones. This human was different. He was not weak, he was remarkable. That night, Livara could not sleep. She walked the palace corridors, watching the stars through the towering windows. Thoughts of power and duty mixed with an unfamiliar emotion. She realized that this union, which had seemed foolish to her advisors, might be the beginning of something extraordinary. And for the first time in centuries, Empress Livara felt uncertainty and hope at the same time. Life in the Xylarian palace was not easy for a human. Aiden quickly discovered that the grandeur and rules of the empire were as challenging as any battlefield he had faced on Earth. The halls gleamed with gold and light, but every step he took felt like walking a tightrope. He spilled drinks at formal dinners, mispronounced ancient Xylarian phrases, and once accidentally insulted a minister who had served the Empire for decades. The court laughed quietly at his mistakes. Some generals openly scowled, whispering behind his back. "Humans are soft," they said. "They will never survive Xylarian life." Even the Empress, who had chosen him with curiosity and hope, sometimes frowned at his clumsy attempts to adapt. She could see why others doubted him. Yet strangely, she did not feel frustration as often as she had expected. Aiden's response was simple. He tried. He observed, he asked questions, and he learned. He never scolded the staff when he didn't understand something. He did not lash out at those who mocked him. Instead, he smiled politely, helped quietly where he could, and refused to give up. Slowly, the people around him began to notice. A servant who had initially sneered now waited for his gentle guidance. A soldier who had doubted his ability to command respect now paused before criticizing him. Livara watched all of this silently. She had been raised to measure strength by power, by ability to command, by ruthlessness in action. Yet here was a human whose strength was quiet, invisible, and yet undeniable. He could win respect without threats, without violence, without cunning tricks. She felt a strange pull toward him, a mixture of admiration and curiosity that she had not allowed herself in centuries. The difficulties were not just social. Learning the alien ways of the palace tested Aiden's patience and endurance. The gravity in certain halls, the strange food, even the alien customs for sleep and meditation were uncomfortable for him. Yet he persisted, often with a soft determination that reminded Livara of why she had chosen him. He was not perfect, and he did not pretend to be. Instead, he met every challenge with honesty, effort, and courage. One evening, after a particularly long day of court ceremonies, Livara found Aiden in the gardens, staring at the stars. The gardens were enormous, stretching across terraces and pools, filled with alien flowers that glowed in soft colors. Aiden's hands were calloused from learning the ways of the palace, from helping the staff, from small acts no one noticed. He looked at her and said quietly, "I may be a human, Your Majesty, but I will learn. I will survive. Not because I am strong like your generals, but because I refuse to fail." Livara felt her heart tighten. In that moment, she understood something important. Strength did not always look like a weapon or a command. Sometimes it looked like persistence. Sometimes it looked like courage that refused to break under pressure. And sometimes it looked like a human, small and fragile by every standard of the universe. Standing tall in the face of doubt and ridicule, the council continued to watch, unaware of the bond growing between the Empress and her human. They only saw mistakes, imperfections, and what they called weakness. But Livara began to see a pattern. Every misstep Aiden made, every challenge he faced, he met with a resilience that even seasoned Xylarian warriors lacked. Her advisors warned her that humans were fragile, yet she knew quietly that this one human was something more. By the end of the week, the laughter of the court began to change. Some nobles who had mocked him now nodded respectfully. Even the generals paused before questioning him. The palace, once filled with doubt, was starting to notice a subtle truth. There was power in honesty, courage in patience, and strength in heart. Livara, standing alone in her chambers that night, realized something she had not anticipated. This human, whom she had married almost as a curiosity, was teaching her a lesson centuries of power had not. True strength was not always in domination or fear. Sometimes it was in quiet resilience, in moral courage, and in the unwillingness to give up, even when the entire universe seemed against you. And in that realization, the Empress felt something she had not felt in centuries: hope. The peace of the Xylarian Empire was fragile. For centuries, rival systems had eyed its wealth and power, waiting for a moment of weakness. That moment arrived unexpectedly, as a fleet of heavily armed ships approached the outer borders, their intent clear: conquest. The Council of Generals gathered in panic. Weapon systems hummed, alarms echoed through the palace halls, and the Empress herself stood tall, her mind calculating every possible strategy. All eyes turned to Aiden. He was human, untrained in alien warfare, and they believed he would be useless in this crisis. Many whispered behind closed doors, "Why would the Empress trust a human with anything important?" Aiden, however, remained calm. He watched the holographic map of the approaching fleet with quiet focus. He did not speak loudly, did not demand attention, yet when he finally did, the council fell silent. "We have more information than they expect," he said simply. "Their movements are predictable. They assume we will respond like Xylarians always do. We don't have to fight their way, we can fight smarter." Livara's eyes narrowed. She had never seen a human analyze a battle so clearly, so logically. Yet part of her still doubted. Could he survive? Could a human really turn the tide against a fleet built to destroy worlds? The battle began at dawn. Aiden requested to join the fleet, to assist the generals and observe the engagement firsthand. The council protested. "Humans die easily. It is suicide," they warned. But Livara saw something in his eyes, a confidence that was not arrogance. She nodded silently, Talai allowing him to go. In the fleet, Aiden moved quickly. He watched how the Xylarian ships responded, noticed patterns in the enemy's maneuvers, and quietly advised the commanders. His suggestions were simple but effective. Split forces differently. Use decoy formations. Target weak points that Xylarians often ignored. At first, the generals resisted. They were proud, used to victory through brute strength. Yet the human's perspective revealed opportunities no Xylarian had considered. Hours passed, tension stretching like a bowstring. Explosions lit the void as ships clashed and casualties began to mount. Still, Aiden stayed calm. His steady voice guided the fleet, and slowly the tide began to turn. Ships that should have been destroyed maneuvered to safety. Enemy vessels faltered, and Xylarian soldiers found renewed confidence. From the palace, Livara watched the battle unfold on the grand viewing screens. Her heart pounded, a mixture of fear and awe. The human she had married, the one everyone thought weak, was leading the fleet to victory, not through strength alone, but through intelligence, observation, and courage. By evening, the enemy fleet retreated, damaged and disorganized. Xylarian ships returned home, battered but victorious. The council, who had doubted him at every step, were silent, their faces pale with disbelief. Livara's chest swelled with pride, though she tried to hide it. She had known there was something remarkable in Aiden, but seeing it unfold in real battle left her stunned. Later, when the fleet returned, soldiers and commanders alike sought him out. They bowed, they shook his hand, and even the harshest generals offered rare words of respect. Aiden did not boast. He only smiled quietly, returning to Livara's side. The Empress looked at him, her eyes softening. "You risked yourself," she said. "For us, for me." Aiden shook his head. "I risked myself because it was the right thing to do. Not for glory, not for titles, not for fear. Strength is not measured by survival alone. It is measured by the choices we make when others doubt us." Livara felt something stir inside her. A mixture of awe, respect, and an emotion she had not allowed herself for centuries. Admiration. The human she married had shown her and the entire empire, a truth they had long forgotten. True strength was not in intimidation, in superior weapons, or in fear. It could reside in the quiet determination of one human willing to stand, even when everything seemed against him. That night, the stars shone brighter than usual. Livara stood in the observation tower thinking of Aiden and the courage he had shown. She realized that her choice had not been a mistake. She had married not just a human, but a force capable of changing the course of empires. And for the first time in her life, she wondered if she had underestimated not only humans but the heart itself. After the battle, life in the palace settled into a new rhythm. But the air had changed. The generals whispered differently. The ministers nodded with quiet respect, and even the servants began to look at Aiden with curiosity rather than pity. The human had survived what no one thought possible, and his quiet strength had left a mark on the Xylarian Empire. Livara, however, noticed more than the others. She watched him move through the palace halls, not with the pride of a conqueror but with careful attention to those around him. He spoke kindly to servants, asked simple questions of the staff, and smiled at the children who wandered near the throne room. It was as if his presence softened even the cold, hard stones of the palace itself. She began to admire him in ways she had never imagined. Not because he was human, or because he had survived the battle, but because he carried himself with integrity. Where the council used fear to command obedience, Aiden used understanding. Where generals shouted to enforce respect, he listened and guided. His strength was not in his arms or even his mind, but in his heart, and it shone brighter than any Xylarian weapon. At night, they often walked the palace terraces together. The stars stretched endlessly above them, and the soft hum of alien machinery mixed with the gentle wind. Livara would ask questions about Earth, about humans, and Aiden would answer with patience and thoughtfulness. She found herself laughing at his stories, feeling warmth she had long forgotten. For centuries she had ruled without companionship, without trust, without anyone who could challenge her or make her feel truly alive. Aiden changed that. Yet it was not just charm or kindness that captivated her. It was the way he faced difficulties without fear. When a delicate negotiation with a neighboring system threatened war, Aiden did not panic. He studied the situation carefully, asked questions, and offered advice that was both simple and profound. He saw solutions that others overlooked, solutions grounded in morality and courage rather than ambition. Livara realized that the human's strength challenged her own. She had relied on power and fear to maintain control, but Aiden showed her another way. She began to wonder if ruling through understanding, through empathy and courage, could be more powerful than ruling through intimidation. This thought both excited and frightened her. Could she trust a human, someone so different from herself, to teach her about leadership? The council did not understand the change. They continued to treat him as a curiosity, a fragile creature who had survived by luck. But Livara saw clearly that it was no luck. Aiden's victories, his careful guidance, and his calm presence had saved the Empire more than once. She found herself respecting him not as her human consort, but as a leader in his own right. One evening, as they walked among the glowing gardens of the palace, Livara stopped and looked at him. "You do not seem afraid," she said softly. "Not of failure, not of danger, not even of me." Aiden smiled faintly, his eyes calm and steady. "Fear is natural, Your Majesty, but courage is choosing to act despite it. I may be human, but I do not let that stop me from doing what is right." Her heart tightened. His words were simple, yet they carried weight that struck her deeply. He had survived battles, navigated politics, and faced ridicule, all without losing himself. He had shown her a strength she had never seen in anyone before, alien or otherwise. Livara realized that she had begun to depend on him, not only for his skill and courage, but for the perspective he offered. With Aiden, she felt a sense of partnership she had never experienced. He challenged her, inspired her, and reminded her that strength came in many forms. That night, Livara stood alone in her chambers, gazing at the stars. She thought of Aiden, and a feeling both strange and powerful filled her. Respect, admiration, and something more, an emotion she had long denied herself. In the human she had married, she saw the possibility of a new kind of strength, a strength not rooted in fear but in courage, compassion, and integrity. And she knew deep in her heart that the Empire, and perhaps even she herself, would never be the same again. The Xylarian palace, which had always seemed unshakable, suddenly felt fragile. Whispered rumors reached the Empress, plots of betrayal, schemes to seize power while she was distracted by her human consort. Livara had faced threats before, but this one felt closer, personal. Someone inside the palace, someone who knew its secrets, planned to take her life and claim the throne. Late one evening, As Livara walked the corridors alone, she sensed the danger before it struck. Shadows moved too quickly, voices too hushed. Before she could react, strong arms seized her and darkness enveloped her. She struggled, but her captors were skilled, trained to overcome even the most powerful Xylarian. She realized with a chill that the palace guards had been bribed, neutralized, or misled. The betrayal was complete. Aiden was not present at the moment of attack. He had been assisting with diplomatic communications in another wing. When he learned of the coup, he did not panic. He did not hesitate. He assessed the situation quickly, his mind already calculating the steps he would take to save the Empress and reclaim control of the palace. The council had underestimated him just as many others had. But Aiden had one advantage no one could predict: human ingenuity. Alone, armed only with his bare hands, a small blade, and his sharp mind, he moved through the palace. Guards rushed at him, confident that a human could not defeat seasoned Xylarians trained for combat. Yet he was faster than they expected. He ducked, twisted, and struck with precision, each movement a combination of careful planning and instinct. For every attacker who fell, he advanced another step toward the Empress. Meanwhile, Livara, bound and guarded, felt a mixture of fear and astonishment. She had faced enemies before, but the thought of seeing this human, the one she had married, the one she had begun to admire, face overwhelming odds alone filled her with an unexpected emotion. Hope. Somehow she knew he would not fail. Hours seemed to stretch endlessly as Aiden fought his way through the palace. He anticipated traps, outsmarted ambushes, and never lost focus. Each moment revealed a new facet of his strength, not just physical but mental and moral. He cared not only about surviving but about protecting her, about saving lives, about ensuring that justice prevailed. Finally, he reached her chambers. Livara saw him stand in the doorway, breathing steady, eyes sharp, determination burning in every line of his face. The guards who had underestimated him now lay defeated. The human who had seemed ordinary in court had become unstoppable. "You came," she said, disbelief and relief mingling in her voice. "I promised," he said simply, cutting her bonds free. "I would never let anyone harm you, Your Majesty, or the empire you protect." Together they fought their way out of the palace. Livara marveled at his courage, his ability to act decisively, and his unwavering focus. He shielded her from attacks, guided her through dangers, and never faltered. She realized that every moment she had doubted humans had been a mistake. This one human had shown her a strength that rivaled the greatest warriors of the Empire. By dawn, the coup was crushed. The traitors were defeated or captured, and the palace returned to a tense calm. Livara stood on the palace terrace, watching Aiden handle the aftermath with humility and care, speaking calmly to the soldiers and the staff, calming fears and restoring order. Her heart swelled. She had known him to be brave and kind, but this display of courage, intelligence, and unwavering loyalty was beyond anything she had imagined. She realized fully and undeniably that the human she had married was extraordinary, not because of alien technology or combat training, but because of heart, courage, and the refusal to give up. That night, Livara stood alone in her chambers, thinking of Aiden. She felt awe, respect, and something deeper. She had underestimated humans, underestimated him, underestimated the power of the heart. And she knew in that moment that the Xylarian Empire had changed forever, not because of fear nor weapons, but because of one human who had refused to let darkness prevail. The morning after the coup left the Xylarian palace quiet, yet tense. Guards patrolled more cautiously. Whispers of betrayal still hung in the air, and the council sat in uneasy silence. But for Livara, the most important presence was Aiden, the human she had married, who had faced impossible odds and saved her life, now stood beside her not as a servant, not as a subject, but as an equal partner in the rule of the empire. The Empress watched him carefully. Aiden moved through the palace with calm authority, speaking gently yet firmly to soldiers, servants, and advisors alike. Where the council had relied on fear and intimidation, he relied on respect and understanding. Livara felt a swelling admiration she had never allowed herself to feel before. He did not command with arrogance. He did not demand obedience. He earned it with his actions, his words, and the quiet strength that seemed to flow from him naturally. For the first time in centuries, Livara felt her heart soften. The human beside her had changed the empire, but more importantly, he had changed her. She realized that her rule had always been solitary, defined by fear and precision. Aiden showed her another path, one where courage, intelligence, and compassion could guide even the strongest empire. Their partnership became evident during a council meeting. The generals, still uneasy after the failed coup, presented new strategies to protect the empire from outside threats. Aiden listened patiently, asking simple, clear questions that revealed weaknesses others had overlooked. Where Xylarian leaders relied on brute strength, he suggested methods that combined ingenuity and efficiency. Some ideas seemed almost too simple, yet when tested in simulations they succeeded spectacularly. Livara felt a thrill of pride. This human, who many had dismissed as weak, was now shaping the very strategies of her empire. He had proven not only his bravery but his mind, his vision, and his ability to think beyond the rigid patterns the Xylarians had relied on for centuries. Later, as they walked through the glowing gardens, Livara spoke softly. "I underestimated you," she admitted. "I thought strength was measured by power, by control, by fear, but you have shown me something entirely different." Aiden's eyes met hers, steady and kind. "Strength is not just about what we can destroy," he said. "It's about what we can protect. It's about choices even when fear is all around us. You taught me to trust, and I hope I can teach you the same." Livara felt warmth spread through her chest. For centuries she had relied only on herself. She had not trusted easily, had not allowed anyone to stand beside her. Yet now she realized she did not want to face the empire alone. Not when Aiden was by her side. The empire itself seemed to respond to their bond. Soldiers spoke of him with respect. Generals began to follow his counsel, and even the council hesitated before challenging his ideas. Where once humans were dismissed as fragile, Aiden's reputation grew, not as a human, but as a force of nature in his own right. One evening, as they stood on the terrace watching the stars, Livara finally spoke the words she had long feared to admit. "You are extraordinary," she whispered. "Not just in strength, not just in courage, but in heart. I am proud to have you by my side." Aiden reached for her hand, his touch gentle, grounding. "And I am proud to stand with you," he replied. "Not because I am fearless, but because together we are stronger than any enemy, any challenge." In that moment, the Empress understood fully that the human she had married was more than a companion. He was a partner, a teacher, a protector, and a reminder that true strength came from the courage to act, the will to protect, and the heart to care. The empire would thrive, but more importantly, Livara herself had been transformed. And in the soft light of the palace, amidst the quiet hum of the universe, the Empress realized that the turning point of her life and her empire had arrived. The Xylarian Empire had never been so quiet. The palace, once filled with tension and whispers, now carried a sense of renewed strength and unity. Soldiers patrolled with purpose. Council members debated with respect, and the people spoke of the Empress and her human consort with awe. But within the palace, Livara felt the most profound change, not in the empire but in herself. Aiden stood beside her on the terrace, the stars reflecting in his eyes. He had not only survived battles and political schemes, but had shown courage, intelligence, and compassion in every moment. He had revealed to her a strength no one had expected, a power that transcended physical might or alien technology. Livara had seen him fight, guide, and protect, not because he sought glory, but because he believed in doing what was right. She studied him quietly, the weight of centuries pressing on her heart. "I underestimated you," she said softly. "I thought humans were fragile. I thought your kind could never survive in our world, but you are more than I could have imagined." Aiden looked at her, calm yet unwavering. "Strength is not measured by what we can destroy, Livara. It is measured by what we protect, by what we endure, and by what we choose to stand for, even when the world doubts us." Her chest tightened. Every word rang true, every action he had taken now clear in her mind. She remembered the first day she had met him, clumsy, untested, seemingly ordinary. And now, he had saved her, shaped the Empire's future, and taught her lessons centuries of power had not. Livara took a deep breath. "I see it now," she whispered. "You are not just a human. You are extraordinary. Not because of skill, not because of luck, but because of your heart, your courage, your honesty, your determination. It has changed me, and it has changed everything." Aiden reached for her hand, his grip steady and warm. "I stand with you not as a weak human, but as someone who believes in the strength of what we can build together. We may come from different worlds, but we share the same purpose: to protect, to lead, and to make this empire better than it has ever been." Livara felt tears prick her eyes. She had ruled alone for centuries, feared alliances and trust, yet here was a being, one so different, so unexpected, who had shown her that true power did not lie in fear, domination, or control. It lay in courage, in integrity, and in the willingness to act for what is right. That night, they walked together through the palace gardens, the soft alien lights casting long shadows across their path. Soldiers and staff moved quietly around them, aware of the human who had changed the course of their empire. Livara realized that he had earned not just respect, but love, from her, from the people, and from the empire itself. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel fully the pride of a ruler, the awe of an admirer, and the deep warmth of love. She knew the council could not have predicted this human's impact, and she smiled at the thought. Aiden had not only proven the worth of his species, he had proven the power of heart and character. Standing together on the highest terrace, Livara looked out across her empire. Stars shimmered in the sky, distant planets glowing like jewels. "We are stronger together," she said quietly, more to herself than to him. "Stronger than any weapon, any army, any fear." Aiden squeezed her hand gently. "And we will face whatever comes next, together." The Empress smiled, a sound rare and beautiful, carrying centuries of wisdom, sorrow, and hope. She realized that the human she had married had revealed a truth she had long forgotten. Strength is not born from fear or power alone. True strength comes from courage, integrity, and the heart to stand for what is right. And in that quiet moment, beneath the endless stars, Livara knew the Empire, and she herself, had been reborn.